taxes, death taxes, and the Philadelphia Union's 2024 season. Will it end? Will it continue? Well, we're going to find out soon enough. But welcome, everyone, to today's edition of the PHLY Union podcast. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, JP Zapata, joined as always with the lovely Renee Washington. We got the man behind the glass, Andrew Frazier. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I mean, obviously, we all know what's going on in the city. Renee's obviously wearing the colors. It's, Red October, and I'm so geeked up over these baseball games. And as much as a soccer head as we all are, heads, I should say, as we all are, it's very frustrating following this team, watching this team match after match, and with obviously, listen, two good opponents in the last week. But when you make the playoffs, Renee, there's only good teams that are gonna be there. So yeah, I'm a little frustrated. But what's happening? How you doing, Renee?
So the Union, where do we begin? Listen, we got a lot to get into. I know we've got our buddy Todd Lewis on the show with us at 1:30 to help break this down, since we are in a break, which in itself has me annoyed that the MLS and the NWSL both have an international break a week before the final week of the regular season ending. And
so dumb.
It's awful.
Horrible.
It's awful. And there's also another one for the MLS. I think we were talking about, JP, during the playoffs. Like, that in itself could be a whole hour-long show, because you've got to figure out a way to make sure the schedule rolls through. It's almost like you're punishing the teams that are good. Like, the teams that have good players, I should say, because you're going to have them. Everyone doesn't get a break. Some guys are still playing. You're now traveling. Oh, awful. So during this international break, it's also the reality that we are extending what could be the end for the Union. Like, coming out of this break, this Cincinnati game could be anything. Yeah. We have no idea what to expect. We talked about it like it could be meaningless. Well, they still have a chance. Weirdly enough, after going winless in the last three, the Union still have a chance to make the playoffs on decision day.
What is this?
It's coming down to, we've got to watch all the other games. We need some help, all this, that, and the third. But it's a team that has the talent, and I feel like it's so frustrating because had they won, Atlanta United's a great example. Had they won and taken care of business, I think you're going into this break and then decision day with way less stress. They have to win.
Oh, yeah. Big.
They have to win.
I would love to say I'm doing great. Obviously, it sucks when you have so many pieces that need to kind of fall in place in order for you to get into the playoffs. Let's be realistic about it. Montreal, DC United, they both have to lose this weekend. The Union have to win. This is a must-win game. They are playing Cincinnati. The last time that they saw Cincinnati was in the round of 16 for Leagues Cup back in August. They did win that game. It was a 4-2. It was a 4-2 game back in August. But the game before that, previously they played. It was in June 19th. They lost. It was a 4-3 game. So the Union have had success against Cincinnati this year. Can they have success, after this break? I don't know. Does Cincinnati have anything to play for? That's the other question. Since they're already kind of seeded in, is there anything that they really need to kind of, should you risk your players by going hard against the Union? I think not. I think it would be foolish of them to do that.
Yeah, sit those guys on down.
So sit them down, exactly. So maybe things do kind of play in your favor. I mean, Montreal has to play NYCFC. That's a matchup that they could potentially lose. And as long as one of those two lose and we win, we're in.
That's all. That's all. You know what, guys? Deja vu. We were here last year.
Literally
last
year.
Stretch of the regular season. It was, 7 ties in a row? And I remember us on the show talking about they just need to win one. They just need to win one. And it came down to decision day. They squeezed in.
We weren't confident before New England either.
We were not confident before New England. And to your point, Andrew, yes, in this league, anybody can win on any given day. So they definitely can get help. But 2 years in a row, back-to-back, of us having to wait until the final day of the regular season to know whether or not the Union are in, I don't think I can handle this.
Classic Philadelphia fashion.
Classic. I can't handle this.
And listen, we're have a whole show to talk about the soccer portion of this, and we'll have Todd Lewis, like Renee mentioned, at 1:30. But I always think about the fans, right? And I just look at this small window. Obviously, Union MLS soccer is a summer. It's always going to go up against baseball. And for the Union in this market specifically, this last 3 years, the Phillies have had an amazing run, right?
Yeah.
And the Union in 22, though, had a great run. And it's I remember I remember that day we lost the MLS Cup and we lost game 6 to the Astros.
Rough.
Never forget that day.
Dude, like this whole city, people were watching the Union in the day and then gearing up for the Phillies at night. And we were slowly transitioning into 5-for-5, world that we want to live in. And like you fast forward to now, I mean, people are like, yo, what's up with the Union? People have forgotten completely. Apple TV hasn't helped with it either. But people right now, I mean, like, they just have absolutely no. There was like a time in 22 where people were like, "Oh, well, yeah, we have like a solid soccer team here in Philadelphia. Okay, I might peek at it." But now people are just like, they don't even know what's going on. People are asking me, "Oh, the Union are still playing?" Like, yeah, they are, but they might not make the playoffs.
That's so funny they say that. I remember that day vividly. The day they lose the MLS Cup, because my girlfriend and I, we were sitting at Johnny Brenda's,
nice,
in Fishtown, and I remember garage is right across the street. And I remember there was like a flood of people there for the Union. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were watching it on my phone because we were sitting there waiting to meet up with some people. And someone scored. I forget who scored, but someone scored in the roar of the crowd coming from garage. Yeah. And I was just like, this is so cool because this is Philadelphia soccer right here. Finally, it's having its moment, and it just felt like poof, gone.
Feels like a waste opportunity.
That's the other part is you've got to capitalize when you've got the excitement of the fans and knowing that soccer is growing and doing a tremendous job in all aspects of soccer in the United States of just giving more access, sharing more about it. More people are learning about it. More people are paying attention. For the MLS, I know we've talked about a lot on how can the Union compete in terms of salary and roster, but also in terms of fandom. You don't have to have the highest paying team. You don't have all those things don't have to be there. What needs to be there is that you have a good product on the field. Mm-hmm. Every coach talks about that across the MLS and the NWSL and the USL and every league of we want to give our fans the excitement of knowing when you come out to watch us play, you're going to get a great game. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be high energy. So in order to keep fans and build and even add to your fandom, you've got to provide that. And the team, unfortunately, has had, granted, the games have still been good, even regardless of the results. They're very competitive, but it's tough it's tough if you're not a true fan, I should say, and you're trying to learn the players, learn the team, follow, and it's so up and down and so rocky. So I do wish that there was, to your point, guys, like a build off of 2022. Yeah. It's been a drop off. The last 2 seasons have been unfortunately disappointing.
Yeah. Maybe this is something we should ask, when we have our guests from the other markets. How's MLS growth in those markets been doing? But I do believe that Apple TV is definitely taking a hit for a lot of the casual MLS fans.
I was just talking about this with some Red Bulls broadcasters because everybody, of course, lost the local broadcast.
Big.
And that's huge because it's local voice. Think about if Major League Baseball, we're all watching the Fox Sports broadcast right now and pounding our heads against the wall.
Horrible.
Imagine if that was every game.
No T-Mac or Croc?
Right. Imagine if you don't have T-Mac and Truck. You don't have, of course, there's still radio broadcasts, but that's not the same. It's great. Thankfully, we have that. But if you only had the national broadcast for any sport, it's not the same because they're not around the team day in and day out. And I say this as someone that's on national broadcast. Yep. You're not following the team. You're not in the market. You're not at every practice. Versus if you have a Dave Leno, Sebastian Letou, back when I used to do it, you're actually there. You're following the team. So you have a better pulse of not only the team, but the fans, the vibe, the city. So it is, I think, great that they have the digital component that you can watch on your phone because I do enjoy being able to see Apple TV on my phone. But I just wish they hadn't gone away with the local for every game.
And like what JP was saying earlier, talking about the digital aspect of it, Apple, it's great. You do have the convenience of being on your phone. You want to be on a tablet. You're away. You want to watch the game. But just specifically looking here in Philadelphia, and this is a overused term, but Philadelphia is a blue-collar city. And to have to pay, $10 a month just to have Apple, and then on top of it, pay for the MLS Pass, which is another $10 to $15.
Yes, it's not even included with Apple TV.
You're looking at $25 a month just to watch any MLS games. And that's ridiculous.
Not to mention you're not getting the true pregame, halftime, postgame shows.
Exactly.
Like the MLS wraparound show that they do, they're just touching on keys to each game, highlighting a couple players. And listen, the crew, friends of mine, friends of ours, I should say, they do a good job. But it's not the same as like a 20, 30-minute pregame show and a traditional halftime show and a postgame show. And actually, like you mentioned, the access of you can pop on your TV for free and watch whatever, channel it's on, PHL 17, whatever channel it's on, versus having to go pay and then pay again. And it's behind all these walls. So I just wish there was a way they had found a better balance. Like give us Apple TV, but also much like the NBA does, every other league does this. Like the NFL, for example, Thursday night's prime. You know where Sunday night's going to be. You know where Monday night's going to be. Like they each have, for every station, they have their night.
Yeah.
Every league does that.
Yeah.
The WNBA, even on the women's side, WNBA does it. NWSL does it. Why does the MLS not do that? Everything is strictly Apple TV. There's no TV broadcasting rights outside of them. So every game is there. There's no like, oh, on a Saturday prime time, I can watch this game on my local TV. It's not behind the Apple TV wall.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just, that's one of those, that and the international breaks have to be like two pain points that I feel like are such a disservice to this league.
And listen, it's going to be interesting. We're always going to argue this. Obviously, right now, Apple TV's happy because that messy money is looking nice for them. So we're going to continue this. But on Saturday, we did get Danny Higginbotham, which I love me some Danny. But let's talk about that match. Oh, boy. The Union in Columbus, which, as we all know, they always struggle. Doesn't matter which stadium it is, lower.com or the old Crew Stadium, they're always going to struggle. And again, needing a victory or points, the Union unfortunately fall 3-2. 25th minute goal by Nathan Harrell and a 70th minute goal by Jack McGlynn. So the young kids got into it. But them set pieces, something we're usually good at, but you get 2 goals from Cucho Hernandez from the corner spot. Dude, are you kidding me? Farsi gets on the board there. Lineup pretty much as per usual. Blake in goal. Wagner, Elliott, Glezis, Harris, your back line. Danley got the start at the 6. Leon, Flock, and Quinn as your shuttlers. Gazak at the tip of the diamond. Ua and Baribo as the 2 forwards. And what's funny, Renee? Like this match is like the quintessential match that describes 2024.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they played bad, but when you're going up against a Crew team, you need to play much better than good, right? Like I thought they played good, but then what are we doing on those corner kicks? Like on the first one, it's unfortunate Danley loses Cucho, and we know Cucho's freaking nasty.
Of course.
It's easy to lose him in the box, but there's no communication. And now Nathan has to take on Cucho Hernandez, and boom, 1-0. The third goal, Ali Bedoya, God bless him, comes in as a sub. Here comes Cucho Hernandez and Ali Bedoya. Listen, Ali has lost a step or two. Right?
Yeah.
Here comes Cucho Hernandez. Straight. Boom. Untouched. There's your third goal. And it's like those little things deep into the season with a quality opponent like Columbus, you just cannot have those mishaps happen, Renee.
Yeah. You know what? I actually do think it was a good game. It was very back and forth. The Union battled. I think the hard part for the Union right now is, and every time they play the Crew or Inter Miami, I think it is the reality that they're still missing pieces. It's just that's just the nature of it. But I do still think they battled, they competed well. I just don't. They're just not at that level right now. They're that next tier down. And the hard part is they have glimpses of it where we see games and they come out, and you can even look at their nice wins that they put together in September. They come out, they're scoring goals, they're getting shutouts, they're getting stops defensively, and you see, okay, this team has it. But I think the difference is they don't have that next level, full 90 minutes, all season type of talent. This is a team it's young, that they're trying to inundate a lot of youth into this group. It's a lot of moving pieces. We're also getting the passing of the torch, which is rightfully so, where you're slowly kind of replacing some of the older players that have logged a lot of minutes, bringing in some fresh legs, some fresh personnel. And I just think that this is not the season. Yeah. It just is what it comes down to. That's the reality. Even if they make the playoffs, I just think this team is a season away, where they need time to gel, get the chemistry, get things figured out. Because to your point, even about the goals they've given up, it's small mistakes. You're marking in the box, transition play, getting caught flat. It's very minor mistakes that we're not used to seeing, because we're used to seeing the veteran leadership help them overcome those moments. So typically it is your Jack Elliott, your Jakob Glesnes, your Andre Blake, your Ali Bedoya that help you in those moments to problem solve on the fly and get out of that situation. Whereas now we're getting more of the youth. Danley, Nate, McGlynn, Quinn, it's a lot of younger players that you're counting on to be able to problem solve on the fly. And I just don't think they're 90 minutes all season long ready. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And to be honest, if we looked at just this loss, similar to the Inter Miami loss, if you looked at that, in my opinion, as an isolated game, you don't really feel that bad about the loss. Like, it's a good loss. They fought back. Jack McGlynn's goal closes the gap, makes things interesting again. Inter Miami's the same way. You score first. Of course, then Messi in his return back has a brace. And either way, it was 2 good games. But I think when you look at it in the context of the entire season, it's easy to get extremely deflated and frustrated by it. But to be honest, they're not bad games. They're scoring goals, which is something we've talked about, guys, that their offense is better. Their defense just isn't there for 90 minutes, but they have the talent and the pieces. It's just not coming together like we would want to see.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is a foundation team. This is a solid foundation. This is something you want to build off of. This is a team where, like, in the next 2 years is going to be a Columbus. Right. It's going to be a Cincinnati. It's going to be an LA. They just need to have those guys come in who are going to fill in. They're like the keystones. You need the keystone players who are going to come in here and really elevate this team to the next level. I think what we have now, especially this game that just happened, is, like you were saying, was a great, hey, not a bad loss. There was something there, you know, but this team needs an extra 1 or 2 pieces to really say, we're here, we're ready, we're going to compete for cups.
Yeah, that's why they're taking their lumps.
It's interesting. You brought up a good point that's worth looking at for this club. You mentioned Cincinnati. I'm sorry, you mentioned Columbus. You mentioned Miami. I wanted to add Cincinnati in there too. When I look at those 3 teams, obviously they're the tops of the East. They're the class of the East right now. Renee, they have good management. They have a solid team put together, but they also have difference-making players.
Bingo.
You know, whether it be this team that we just played with Cucho Hernandez, the team down in Miami, obviously we know who they have in Messi, and even Cincinnati, the MVP last year, and Luciano Costa. Like, you got, Andrew's bringing up too, like, we're 2 years away. And this is something I want to throw at the people too. Like, is our coaching and the players that we have good enough to compete with those teams? Now, I'm always going to beat the drum for Jim Curtin.
Yeah.
I think he's been dealt a tough hand this year. But I also do think that, and I think Andrew and I, we were talking about this before here, like, he needs more help. Like, the team that was put together, I don't think is good enough to compete with the tops of this league. And so, like, we need to give Jim back those pieces. And the team that we saw 2 years ago that was in the MLS Cup and was seconds away or penalty kick away from winning the MLS Cup, like, that was a really good team. But they didn't have that huge difference maker like an LAFC had. That's kind of what you saw there. It was tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, I want to keep this conversation going, but let's first handle some business.
Let's do
JP.
it.
Listen, if you are looking to maybe plan for all the moments that you need and you want to have an opportunity to take advantage of TrueMark Financial Credit Union's debit card. Let me tell you about TrueMark Financial's debit card. It earns you rewards points. So every time you select credit instead of debit at checkout, you'll earn CU rewards points. And as those points continue to add up, you can redeem them for cash, for travel, for retail gift cards, for merchandise, and much more. You also can monitor your credit scores with TrueMark Financial's components. They have Savvy Money, which allows you to regularly check your credit score for financial awareness, error detection, knowing where your spending's going, knowing where your balances are, checking your score, protecting against any sort of identity theft so that you can monitor unauthorized activity, and also to build that financial stability as well so you can improve your credit habits and maintain a healthy score. So with TrueMark Financial, you have the opportunity. They have so many different benefits, better rates, better fees that they give you, lower fees that you have, I should say, and also just more autonomy and being involved to know where your money's going, tracking your spending, tracking your financial picture. So TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA. They are an equal opportunity lender. And for more information, you can visit truemark.com/PHLY.
All right, Renee. Well, listen, around this time of year, we usually talk about Union soccer gearing up for the playoffs and getting ready. But instead, we might not be able to enjoy that. And instead, we're probably going to have to deal with flu season without any Union soccer. So with flu season coming around, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind your local neighborhood Rite Aid, all right? Everything you need for this upcoming flu season, it's at your local Rite Aid, all right? Don't miss the big game or even some of the holidays coming up. I know Andrew and his household, They love the Halloween. I love my household for Thanksgiving.
Mine's all about fall themes.
Yes, the fall holidays are awesome. So get a flu shot at Rite Aid today. While at the pharmacy, get the latest COVID-19 vaccine and stay up to date on other vaccines as well. You can even ask your pharmacist for a vaccine review or recommendation. The CDC recommends getting a flu shot every year. A person's immune protection from vaccination declines over time. Help protect yourself against the flu by getting your annual flu shot at Rite Aid today. You could just simply walk into your Rite Aid today, or if you're a little bit on a rush, you could schedule that appointment as well at RiteAid.com. State, age, and health restrictions do apply. Ask your local Rite Aid pharmacist for details today. So, beat up that flu with this upcoming flu season coming up with our friends over at Rite Aid. All right, I love it. All right, let's continue talking about this matchup here against Columbus. One other thing I wanted to highlight, Renee, and this is something we were talking about as well before air. The back line. We've talked about it a couple times throughout the past couple months.
Once or twice.
Yes. Again, I did not feel too good about it. They do look a step slow. Obviously, they're obviously going to get older. You know, it's another year in the books. It's something that needs to be looked at this year and this upcoming offseason. And I don't think necessarily you got to break it up and blow it up, but there needs to be an extra wrinkle in there. They're definitely missing Damian Lowe, I would say.
Yeah.
When you talk about the rotation, like it's seamless. Like you felt comfortable. There was Glaz's Lowe, Elliott. It didn't matter. You don't have that right now.
Yeah.
And then I just felt again like they just looked a little bit of a step off against Columbus as well.
Yeah, and again, when you look at their results this season, it's a lot of high-scoring games. It's not that they're getting shut out. It's not that their offense is struggling. We actually had a time, I would say towards especially the end of last season, the end of the regular season, they kept getting those ties, that awful, well, it was not awful depending on how you look at it, that interesting streak of ties that they had. And part of that was they couldn't score. So that was frustrating. This team is scoring 2 goals, 3 goals games. You should not score 2 or 3 goals and lose. Maybe you tie. Maybe it's a high scoring tie. You should not lose that game. And for the Union to have so many games this season, and it's not only just an MLS play, because we saw the same thing in CONCACAF play. It's all around. It's everything becoming a shootout, quite literally. So I do feel like as we talk about what's missing from this group, they right now have small pieces that are kind of covering, I think. And one of them is the offense, believe it or not. That's like covering for the fact that game 3-2 could have been 3-0. You know, but it's a more competitive game because fortunately you're generating opportunities, you're scoring goals. Their back line is leaking right now, and they definitely need to make some changes. And it's not only just their backs, it actually is their midfield too. I know you mentioned Ali Bedoya. Part of the issue is their next level, like that player 12 through 15 or whatever, has to be better. So some of the guys that are starting right now probably could be guys coming off the bench. And I think that's why we are seeing as the game goes on, it's been difficult for them to start and finish strong because when you go to your bench, you're now bringing in pieces that are replacing and the level's not the same. It's just dropping off. Whereas other teams have a little bit more depth and a little bit more versatility in their tactical shape. I think the Union are kind of missing that.
Look at the subs on Saturday. I mean, you saw Ali for Danley. I mean, and your back line's already reeling as is. And I mean, no disrespect to Ali, but we know he's lost a step or two.
Yeah.
Like that's the type of stuff that you can't have.
Yeah. Julian actually brings up a great point in the comments. She says they're the only team below the playoff line with a positive goal differential. That is true. I mean, they're a scoring team, and that just shows you that, you know, your back line really, really, really is major red flags. And I remember a few weeks ago, you know, when Damian Lowe, when that happened, when Jose, when that happened as well, you know, we said they were going to be very thin. They didn't have depth, and it's showing it. It's rearing its big head right now. The depth issue. When you only have 2 guys in center, your center backs, that's all you have essentially playing every game. They're going to get gassed.
Yeah.
You know?
It feels like it was last week. We had the match week where you played NYCFC and DC. You spanked both those clubs a combined 9-1. And then since then, you've allowed 6 goals. This year, guys, they've allowed 53 goals. Only Chicago, Toronto, New England, Montreal, and DC have allowed more. Those are some bad teams. I know DC's and Montreal are knocking on the door in a playoff spot, this is not the category you want to be in. This is not the category that Ernst Sander had in his mind when he built this team out. I remember that first year in 2019, we allowed close to 50 goals, I want to say. And in that following off season, Ernst Sander said, no more. If we're going to play union soccer, we cannot allow this amount of goals. And look, in 2020, they won the Supporter Shield off that mentality of playing defense first. And so the union soccer, if they're going to be successful, defense has to be much better next year.
Definitely.
And something I know we've talked a lot about as we look at just like the offense versus defense is the homegrowns as well, and put a lot on, this team can't just be built off homegrowns. And honestly, they still need to add more pieces. I'm not saying, I agree or disagree. At this point, though, when you look at their recent results, this past Columbus Crew game, it's Jack McGlynn and Nate Harriel scoring. It's Quinn Sullivan scoring. So you are getting the production from the homegrowns. They're doing their part. And it's the youth in general. UA's been giving you more. You've been getting much more consistently in the run of play goals from Daniel Gazdag. Again, their offense is gelling. They're taking risks. I know Jim Curtin talked about that. They want them to be better in executing in the final third, and they have the green light to go and take chances and take risks. But defensively, you cannot continue to have games, as you mentioned, that's an incredibly high amount of goals and also one of the worst teams defensively across the league, where you are going and scoring on one end and then giving up 2 goals. Inter Miami, you score, your defense has to be, and not when I say defense, I don't just mean the back four. Your entire team, because defense actually starts with your forwards, has to be able to defend, to hold tight, to hold on to that lead. You cannot score and then you're conceding goals, 1 goal, 2 goals. It was the same thing against Columbus. Tie game 1-1. Great first goal that Columbus scores. Nate Harriel battles, a scrappy goal off of the set piece. You tie the game up. Your defense has to hold tight. You can't then concede 2 goals. And now you're chasing the game in a 2-goal deficit. So defensively as a team, they've got to figure it out. And to your point, Andrew, they've lost so many pieces that this is why I'm not surprised they are leaking. Yeah. Because you are in the middle of the season, you lost your 6, a center back, you lost your leading goal scorer, but also Julian Carranza was one of the best defenders for this team. We always would talk about, it's not just offensively, defensively, he was a high pressing forward that was getting stuck in on tackles all over the place. So you lost a lot of defensive pieces, and no surprise, the defense is struggling to keep up. Yeah.
No, it's funny. And when I talk about the defense too, like part of it's the back line, but also part of it's the amount of matches that you've missed with Andre Blake. And, there was a time where, poor Zemla's getting put into tough spots and, you probably messed up his confidence. And then, Andrew Rick, as of late, obviously we haven't seen him in a minute since that NYCFC match, but he looked promising. And like next year, I do want to see some more from him. I do think that you need to bring another veteran in here. Yeah. I think there needs to be another vet in the room only because of either Andre with his health or Andre. The thing with Andre is always like, he's going to get called up by Jamaica every now and then. So it's definitely going to be a big part of that too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I going back to the back line, those 4, I mean, I think they're starting to lose a step. And when I say that, Glesnes and Elliott, I think they can't be your starters. I think if you're going to move forward into the future, you have to think about if you're going to keep both of them, if they're going to stay here, they both can't be starting. One of them has to be in your reserve. One has to be coming off the bench. You're going to have to find somebody who's younger, who's a little faster, a little stronger. Because I don't know if it's because they've just have been playing a lot of soccer the last 3 years, and this is just a tax that they've been feeling, or if it is just age is catching up to them or whatnot. But there definitely is, and it's been very, 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 very telling this year that they are kind of not what they used to be.
And honestly, my last point on that before we move along is you can't get stale. So not only are they older and they've played a lot of minutes, I think a big part of this is other teams have them figured out. Yeah. And we see so many times in sports, I don't care what league it is, where a team makes a deep run. Let's say they don't even win the championship, but they get to their league's championship and they don't do anything different in their roster. And every other team is making changes. Yep. Every other team is adding pieces. Yeah. And you can't get stale. You have to keep up. And they've had the same 2 center back pairing for years at this point. You think other teams are surprised at all or have any lack of awareness of how to beat Jacob and Jack? Like at this point, you just need to add in more for youth to keep them fresh, but also just to make them more difficult to get around. I think the back line of Kai, 3 out of 4 we've had for years. Yeah. It's the same 3 out of 4 backs that you've seen. So I do think, in addition to them just getting older and them also having so many minutes that they've played, this back line is one of the most aged, tenured groups, and it's predictable. Teams know how to beat them. Playbook is out.
Yep.
We literally, every time we have a preview show, we always ask the host or the guest coming in, the Union's going to line up right, and they always say 4-4-2 diamond. They're going to bring that high press, and so and that's something we've always talked about, tactical flexibility. But another part of it too is like there's 3 years of tape on almost all of these players, and everyone knows what's coming along. And Andrew was talking about that too. Like Carranza and Brujol, those were huge losses.
Huge.
Those were big parts of that 22 team, and those are gonna be hard to replace. Now, Danley, tough part for him to come in. Comes that summer transfer in the MLS.
Oh yeah,
so hard for those players.
Yeah, he's been here for a month.
Yeah,
to expect anything of him, it's hard.
It is. It is, and you're lucky Barribo stepped up once Carranza left, but. It's so hard to replace both those players, and the thing is, you never want this to go stale. Being stale is never fun. Yeah. And what else can't be stale, ladies and gentlemen, is your tailgate or your pregame. Whatever it is you guys are going to do for the match, the big game. We got playoffs coming up. Maybe not for the Union, but we do have it for the Phillies, right? So my drink of choice, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be, right before that first pitch here today, or when the Union come back and play Cincinnati, I'm going to pop open that nice cold Coors Light that I have stored away in my refrigerator. Because listen, it's the most refreshing light beer that there is. And that's all I can ask for these days, all right? I am getting a little bit older, all right? And sometimes the alcohol does me dirty. So I do like a little bit of the lighter option like Coors Light offers here, ladies and gentlemen. And when the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light's cold lager, cold filtered, and cold package for that much smoother finish. And when you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open that Coors Light. Coors Light is a mountain cold refreshment, crisp as refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. And right now, thanks to our friends over at Instacart and Coors Lights, if you head on over to CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer, you can get them bad boys delivered right to your front door. That is right. Right before the game, go to CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer, and then get the Coors Light delivered to the front step. No more going to the beer store. It's awesome stuff, guys. So whether it be for the baseball playoffs or for the rest of the MLS regular season and the MLS playoffs, make sure you guys are choosing Coors Light.
Absolutely. And while we're at it, let me tell you about our friends that can help if you've got any aching joints, if you're dealing with hands cramping, your back isn't hurting, whatever you're dealing with physically. Rothman actually has, at Rothman Orthopedics, they've got a practice that specializes in everything around taking care of you. They've got the great staff that's been working for over 50 years, tirelessly to provide you with an opportunity to make sure that with their treatments and their physical therapy and all that they've got going on, they can help make sure that you're feeling good. I myself have gone to Rothman Orthopedics over the years as a soccer player for tendonitis and my own joint pains. Well, with Rothman Orthopedics, you can also make sure that you're feeling good. They've got 200 plus fellowship trained physicians that are specialized in specific areas of the body and ready to help you feel great. Hips, knees, spine, shoulders, back, elbows, feet, and ankles, whatever you've got going on that's bothering you with Rothman Orthopedics, they are going to be able to help provide you with the support. They've got sports medicine, physical medicine and rehabilitation, orthopedic oncology, trauma and fracture care, and much more that you can check out today. Years over years over years. So Rothman Orthopedics, which is specialized in orthopedics and you can check them out at rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment today.
Love it, Renee. Love our new friends over at Rothman Orthopedics. And all right, it is 1:34 now here on PHLY Union. And so with it kind of being like a bye week, I know it's weird to talk about with soccer here, but we're in a little bit of an international break. So I figured, listen, let's dive deeper into this team, all right? And there's only one person I want to do this with. Dear friend of mine, love seeing this kid grow, continuously growing his podcast. So please, guys, welcome from the Free Kick Podcast, our dear friend, Todd Lewis. Todd, what's up, brother?
What's up, JP? What's up, Renee? Thank you guys so much for
Hi.
both having me on the show. You guys, I've listened on my drive home from work, and I'm just sitting in the car saying yes, yes, yes to every single point you guys are bringing up. So I'm like, man, you guys are crushing it today. So I'm happy to be a part of the second half of the show.
Dude, we're really thankful for having you on, man. Like I said, I love your work. You've been killing it with these new goal breakdowns you're
I
putting on
love
YouTube.
that.
Super helpful, especially from the Union fans. You know, it's funny because we were talking about Apple TV and kind of the production. We don't really get those type of things, especially specifically for the Union on those. So I think if I speak for most of the fan base, thank you for doing those goal breakdowns, man.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. I actually had somebody, I won't name drop them, but I had somebody from MLS hit me up from MLS Season Pass and like, what software do you use? And so I
I was
let
wondering the
them
same
know.
thing.
Yeah, it's
I'll let you guys know. It's a company called Once Video Analysts. They're based out of Croatia, I believe it is, and so
Nice.
a whole bunch of professional teams use them. And I got a really, really good deal on the software, so I was like, why not give this a go? And then somebody from
course.
MLS Season Pass saw the work and like, first off, they echoed what you just said, JP, and said, this is unique. Nobody else is doing this. I'm sure the Union appreciate this, and the fan base is lucky to have somebody like you doing it. And yeah, I don't know why more people don't do that, but then I noticed MLS Season Pass started doing a little bit more of that. So I'm like, I don't think they're using the same software, but it's like, come on, give me my credit.
Yeah, what the heck?
I was gonna say I was nervous about that actually. Instead of just bringing you on board to do it, to have somebody else do it and use that software. But you're a trendsetter, basically, Todd, is what I'm getting
There
from
we
this.
go.
You're changing the game. But thank you again for joining us because we've been talking so much about the team on the show, and as you mentioned, and just listening. We're all kind of in this space now. We have time to pause and reflect on the regular season so far and what we've seen. What are your thoughts on just kind of what we've seen so far from the Union in terms of game in and game out? I know we were just mentioning it feels like they're taking their lumps right now. They're a couple pieces away, but it's like a little bit more optimistic than the record may show. How are you feeling about how they look? Are you discouraged? Are you optimistic about the future? Where do you stand, I guess, emotionally as we're all trying to process this season so far?
Man, I can take that so many different ways. But so I was at lower.com field this Saturday with Jillian and Kyle Almany. We were in the press box covering this match. And I said to Jillian, I said, I don't know why, but I'm so nervous. I'm like, I haven't been this nervous since maybe the MLS Cup final, just because knowing what was online. The Union were down 3-2 at that point, and it's like, man, the Union do not want to go into the game against Cincinnati where their playoff hopes are out of their control now. Yes, we know that the Union now have to win, but now they have to get help from either a Montreal team or losing or a DC United team losing. Yep. And so the one good thing I would say about that is that the two teams that DC and Montreal play, Charlotte and New York City, both of those teams are playing for higher seeding. And so in my opinion, there's no reason why those guys are going to rotate their squad because they're going to want to get as high of a seed as possible. So that's one good thing that the Union have to look forward to. And then I would say for Cincinnati, I heard you guys discussing that at the beginning of the show. I would say I don't see why Cincinnati would rotate their squad. Yes, they're locked in as a 3 squad, but let's face it, there's essentially 2 weeks off. And so Pat Noonan and his coaching staff are going to want his players fresh for the playoffs. And so this 2 weeks off, I'm sure those guys are going to get an extended break. But then come the game against Philadelphia, it's like, let's ramp up for the playoffs, and let's use this for hopefully a run in the playoffs. So I can't really see Cincinnati rotating to the squad, but hopefully we get help from either a New York City, which Jim Curtin said after the game, for the first time ever, we're going to be fans of New York City, which feels so weird for Philadelphia fans to cheer on a New York team. So let's hope New York City can do the Union a solid. Let's hope Matt Freese, who in my opinion has been the goalkeeper of the year, can have a solid performance like he's done throughout the whole season. So Union are going to be cheering for a loss of DC United or Montreal, but I don't know. The one thing I keep discussing is the amount of drop points that the Union have had this season. 26 drop points. That is insane. 26 drop points. They have 11, I believe it is now, 1 goal losses on the season, which would be the complete opposite last year. How many games did the Union win by 1 goal? And so I think Jim Curtin talked about it during the summertime and at the beginning of the season, how the team's been a little bit unlucky. But then the second half of the season, we've seen luck go the Union's way. How many times did New York Red Bulls hit the post and crossbar in that game that the Union won 2-0? You had Inter Miami with blunder after blunder. The Union took advantage of that with Mikau Ua in the third minute, second minute, something like that. And then you had Busquets towards the end of the game with a bad pass back, and Sam Adeniran kind of put a ball in the back of the net on a wide open goal. And so you look at games like that where the Union have been fortunate. It's too many opportunities where the Union can say, look, we dropped too many points. For me, the two games I hurt the most are the Chicago Fire game away where the Union were up 3-1. They lose that game 4-3. There's no reason why. I know Oliver Zemla was in the net. Oliver Zemla is no Andre Blake, but there is no excuse whatsoever for you to blow a 2-goal lead, especially on the road against a god-awful Chicago Fire team. And then you're up by 2 men against Inter Miami at home, and you lose that game 2-1. It's unacceptable. And even the most recent game against Atlanta United at Subaru Park with Union up 1-0. Atlanta, I don't know if you guys realize this. You guys probably do. The listeners probably do. Only one shot on target by Atlanta in that game. And what happened? That ball went in the back of the net. The Union found ways last season and years past to grind out 1-0 results, and that's not been the case this season. So I don't know. I want to see the Union in the playoffs, but at the same time, it's like they don't deserve to be there.
That's exactly how I feel.
Many games that they've lost and dropped points in.
Dude, like this season, I think if I have to pick a word to describe it, this has been a circus. I mean, like you mentioned some of these games, but like even think about the Seattle match where it gets rained out. Dude, that situation, like that never, ever happens. The Raccoon game, Raquinho against NYCFC. Like there's been so much unorthodox things that's happened with the Union this entire season. And I'm right there with you, dude. Like I just feel like yes, would I want the Union in the playoffs all the time? Absolutely. But I just feel like genuinely they don't deserve it. But like for you, like what do you think it is that like they dropped so many points like you talked about? Like, is it just unluckiness? Is it just like the amount of injuries? We've had a significant amount of injuries. Like, I just can't pinpoint what it is, why this year they just can't grind out those results.
So I'll go back to the point you guys were just talking to before you guys went to your break. Defense.
Okay.
They need new defense, especially the two center backs. Selling Damian Lowe, okay, I get it. You'd rather get something than nothing because I don't believe the club was going to re-sign Damian Lowe in the offseason. His contract was up, so it's better to get something than to let him go on a free. I get that, but now you're asking a lot. I mean, Nathan Herriel was the third center back on this team, and he's not a center back by trade. He's a right back. And so we saw the situation against New York City where Jack Elliott was suspended. Nathan Herriel filled in as center back. Fortunately, it worked out for the Union, but that's not what you typically want to see. You don't want to see a right back playing as a center back. And so this team needs speed back there on the defense. I think you're set with your two outside backs in Kai Wagner and Nathan Herriel. I think Olivier Baizu is a fine backup. I don't think he's an MLS quality starter, at least not on the Union's team. But you need speed in your center backs. How many times? And I'll go to the goals you were talking about at the beginning of the show, JP, where the goal that Farsi scores to put Columbus up 2-1. You had Kai Wagner 1v1 defending against Farsi, and you had Leon Flock get pulled out of position by Herrera, who's making a outside overlapping run. And so because of that, now you have Jack Elliott stepping out of position, which is fine. I have no issue with that. But Jack Elliott doesn't need to step there because if Kai Wagner follows the run of Farsi, then Jack Elliott can pay attention to Diego Rossi, and then Diego Rossi gets in behind the back line because Jack Elliott steps out of position. Andre Blake comes up with a big save, but then the Union failed to clear it away. I mean, how many times this season have we seen the Union get beat way too easily, 1v1? And you were talking about it earlier, Renee, right, where we look at this team, like they didn't typically defend like this in years past, and it's been way too consistent this year with poor defending, and I think a big part of that is speed. And so I have full confidence that this team is going to bring in at least one new center back in the offseason, but that does you no help right now with one game to go and fans still wanting this team to be in the playoffs. But, you know, we knew once that summer transfer window closed and all they did was bring in Sam Adeniran and Danley John Jock, this is what you have. And losing Jose Martinez, a big loss. And I forget which one of you guys brought it up. It might have been Tyler, where you lost depth. These players that now are in your starting lineup were coming off the bench. And they could have made a difference coming off the bench, but now you're relying on them to start, and now you have no depth on the bench. And look at all the pieces that Columbus is able to bring off the bench and close out a game or beat the Union like we saw at the 1-0 loss at Subaru Park early in the season. They started a B squad, and then they bring in Diego Rossi, Cucho Hernandez, Christian Ramirez, and superstars make superstar plays. And unfortunately for the Union, they don't have one of those type of players. So yeah, I would say the defense is a big concern of mine. And I think that's a big reason why the season's not gone the way it is. And let's not ignore the fact that Andre Blake's only played in 13 games this season. And 3 of those games he had an exit in. So yeah, it's a big loss for the Union not having Andre for most of the season. And I think if the Union would have had Andre, then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation regardless of the depth or not.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, especially with Andre Blake's injury, the team got a bit exposed this season. And there's a lot of things that Andre compensates for and overcompensates for with this defensive unit that we hadn't known, because he's such a great goalkeeper and he's making so many tremendous saves. And so to your point, Todd, I know we've been talking about it. It does feel like the Union are a step slow, a bit reactive at times, and it's too easy to get them disorganized defensively. It's too easy to get them pulled out of shape. The leadership's not there. The organization's not there. And when you as a player are not physically able to keep up, whether it's the speed of play or just the ability to read the game, that is where it becomes so easy to get fooled and frazzled. So I do feel like all these things make sense. It's all connected. If you are a Jack Elliott or Jacob Glesnes and you're a step slower and now you're reactive and you're not able to be anticipating the play, you're chasing constantly. And now you're going to make uncharacteristic mistakes. And now you're scrambling. And the composure defensively has not been there. This team has been scoring goals. We talked about it. I know Julian said it in the chat. Yep. We've talked about it. They've been one of the best teams when you look at their goal plus goal differential. They score goals, but they also give up so many goals. So that's why I also kind of feel like you guys have, sometimes it's okay to just we did our best. Let's try again next season. Let's try to figure this out in the offseason. What do you think for the Union, though, it's going to take for them to grind out this last win? Because we've seen so many ups and downs of them this season. Cincinnati's not an easy opponent. It's a must-win game. You, of course, need help, but it starts with winning. What do you think needs to happen for this group? Is it a specific player that you like to see different? Is it a specific lineup? What would you tweak, I should even say, to make sure this team can put their best 90 minutes out there against Cincinnati?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think the players, the coaching staff, fans alike have all been searching for answers why things haven't gone the way that they've gone this season at Subaru Park. And this is something that all of us are not used to seeing. I mean, how dominant have the Union been the last 5-6 years at Subaru Park? I mean, whether it be US Open Cup, whether it be the Leagues Cup, whether it be Champions League, MLS playoffs games, the Union don't lose at Subaru Park. But this season, they have more losses than they do wins. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, the players have told us multiple times after games that they feel more comfortable on the road because it's less pressure and they can play with ease. But for whatever reason, they feel the pressure playing at home. And that's not because of the fan base, but for whatever is going on, I think it's a little bit mental. They're inside their heads. And after they've lost a couple games early in the season at Subaru Park, they've not been able to get over that. And I wish I had the answer for you. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the same lineup that we just saw against Columbus minus Leon Flock. I'd put Jack McGlynn in there probably, but I wish I had the answer, and I don't feel confident. Yes, you guys were talking about how the Union have scored 7 goals this season against Cincinnati, both at TQL Stadium, once in the league, once in the League's Cup, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 win, 1 loss. And so yes, they've had success against Cincinnati, but they haven't had success against Cincinnati at Subaru Park the last couple of years. They found a way to blow a 2-1 lead, I believe it was last season. They blew a 1-0 lead the year prior. So Pat Noonan has this team's number. He knows how to play against the Philadelphia Union. Yes, maybe that's not been the case at times this season, but Pat Noonan's a heck of a coach, and he's going to have his team prepared, and the Union have the work cut out for them. So I wish I could give you a better answer, Renee, but yeah, I don't know what's going on with this team at Subaru Park this season.
I will say against Cincinnati, like obviously you need help, right? You talked about you need help from Montreal and DC, but like just focus on yourself and focus on the opponent at hand. Go out there against Cincinnati and play your style and go get the result that you need, and then let the rest happen. Like I think I speak for most people, especially in this fan base. Just do that, and I think we will be happy. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about. You know, Todd, I know you've heard the front office talk about this too. They love continuity, right? They love the fact that this team has been assembled for, about like 3+ years, and that they love having that comeback year after year. My question to you, do you think that that at this point has hurt them a little bit? I mean, if you look at this lineup, right? Let's talk about that Columbus lineup. 9 of the 11 starters were part of the 2022 year. I mean, and realistically, you had every starter back from that 2022 year at the beginning of this year before Carranza and Brujo got sold. So do you think like you need to like change it up every year a little bit? Like, what's your thoughts on the continuity of this team?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you look around the league every 2 years, I feel like teams are completely different. I mean, for example, look at how different that LA Galaxy team is
Oh,
from
yeah.
last season to this season. And now they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And there's talks that, hey, look, this could be the year that they bring back another MLS Cup just because of how well they played this season with all the new pieces that they brought in. And they look a completely different team under Greg Vanney. And I remember last year, people were saying, oh, Greg Vanney's not the coach. Maybe he should get fired. Well, nobody's saying that this season. They bring in the right pieces, and the team looks fresh. And yeah, I think when you looked at the Union back in 2021, when majority of these players were on this roster, you said these are good players. These are players that the Union can build on. And then 2022, they get so close. They go all the way to an MLS Cup. But honestly, that's probably when they should have blew up this team. Should have brought in some more players, and then they said, you know, we're going to bring it back for one more season in 2023. And you're like, okay, it's still a quality team. We still have faith in this team. And then you bring it back again. And it's like, what are we doing? And I know Ernst Tanner said they just didn't have any money whatsoever to spend in the winter. And so you make little signings like Sanders Ngabo, Marcus Anderson, Oliver Zemla, and you can't really do much because the money wasn't there. And then you look what they did in the summertime, only bring in Sam Dinaran and Danley John Jock. You guys talked about it, selling Julian Carranza, which, you know, it was time. He was going to leave for free in the winter. And so if you guys go on transfer market, this Union still didn't get anything for Julian Carranza. He still left on a free. You get a small sell-on percentage, but that's it. And so would you guys feel more confident having Julian here up until the end of the season where, look, you still got zero for him in the summertime. You would have got zero for him in the wintertime. You got a small sell-on clause, but is that worth it? Because let's remember, too, that the Union still have to pay whenever Feyenoord decide to sell Julian Carranza. The Union still have to pay Inter Miami, and the Union in the agreement with Inter Miami, they agreed to take on the sell-on clause that his club in Argentina had from Inter Miami. And so the Union aren't going to get anything from Julian Carranza. So would you guys have felt more confident having Julian Carranza here in the rest of the season? I would argue, well, we wouldn't have seen the emergence of Ty Baribo because when Julian was here, Ty Baribo was getting no game time. So at least now the Union know they have a player in Ty. And when you approach this offseason, you can say, look, we have a striker we can build off of. We don't have to go out and get two strikers. I do believe that Sam Dinaran isn't brought back by this club next season. It hasn't worked out. I know Jim Curtin was hoping that he would give them some goals, but yeah, his contract's up after the end of the season. The whole reason why St. Louis moved on from him was because there was rumors that teams in Europe were interested in him. He had no interest in re-signing with St. Louis, and so kind of like with Union and Julian Carranza, it was better for St. Louis to get a little bit of GAM than losing him on a free. And unfortunately for Sam, it just hasn't worked out here in Philadelphia. So I do think the Union still go out and bring in a striker. But yeah, the way this roster was built this past winter and this summertime, it really set them up for failure. And maybe we should have seen a lot of sales in the winter. And it's unfortunate that, you know, this is the situation that the Union are on. So yeah, definitely should have changed up the roster after the 2022, I would say.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I mean, dude, when I hear them saying that they're going to combat the heavy schedule with just hoping players are going to stay healthy, that just tells you everything you need to know. But before we let you go, Todd, real quick, does the Philadelphia Union make the playoffs?
No, they don't. I think they get a draw against Cincinnati from 2 weeks from now, and yeah, I'm sure one of DC United or Montreal is going to lose, but the Union aren't going to take care of business at home at Subaru Park because they haven't done it the whole season, and I just have no belief in this team at Subaru Park, and I'm sure the players feel the same way too.
I wish I could disagree with Todd, but unfortunately, I do agree with him.
I do too, actually.
Well, listen, Todd, dude, you are the man. Keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate your time. We'll definitely have to catch up some more, especially as it seems like the offseason might be quicker than we thought.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely keep an eye. But guys, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you guys are listening and following along the Free Kick podcast. Todd is doing a great job. Todd, we love you, brother.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Todd. Keep up the great work.
Todd Lewis of the Free Kick Pod. Yeah.
Crushing our souls.
What's up?
So crushing our souls.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the reality.
The reality sets in.
I do agree with him. I mean, also with this game not until October 19th, so much time in between, and
literally 11 days, man.
You know, I think, like, to me, the Union, in order to win this game, and that's why I asked him, I was curious his thoughts, and we have plenty of time to talk about it. They've got to score early, but they've got to score like 2 goals early, and then you have to essentially continue to high press and minimize how many final third entries Cincinnati has. That's all for 90 minutes, which is a very tall task because you can't allow them to get around the goal at this point. The defensively, it's just too many breakdowns that are waiting to happen. Yeah,
and then so we have about 5 minutes left. Obviously, we got to touch upon the big news of today in the league. Greg Berhalter's back. Andrew's loving it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this, but they're making him the athletic director and the
coach
and the manager.
The coach. Yeah,
I don't think that's ever a good idea in any sport. Now, I do think Greg will be successful in this league. Like I know people like are still harped on his USMNT gig, but like before that, people forget he was one of the best managers in this league. So Chicago's gotten it wrong a lot over the last decade. They may have finally gotten it right, but we'll see how that job title does help him or hurt him.
Can't be any worse. They're last place in the league.
Every year it feels
can't be any worse. But it's interesting to me whenever coaches fall up to get let go from a position or mutually part ways, whatever terms you want to put on it, to only then get hired somewhere else. And the coaching carousel always makes me chuckle that here he is already. He's got a new coaching gig from the U.S. men's national team to Chicago to the Fire. So only in our head coaching positions in this world, in this country especially, do we see coaches not good enough to coach one place, but we're going to give you a chance somewhere else.
That's pretty much. And it was a crazy coaching carousel. I mean, we saw Bruce Arena there available, Gio Savarese. Like, these are really good managers that are looking for jobs within this league. But
yeah, and Austin FC also parted ways with Josh Wolf. So we are seeing this is the time with the regular season coming to an end, as we're looking at like standings and the playoff push, that teams are noticing this isn't working. We need a new voice, and they're making the decision to part ways with their coaches. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple more, especially as teams are now eliminated or going to be eliminated, that you're going to get that end of the regular season firing squad.
Is Jim safe?
What'd you say?
I don't know.
I said, is Jim safe?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't blame him.
Or do
for
we
the
see
losses.
A curtain call?
Curtain call. I don't know. I think the tough part is the Union in the last 2 seasons since that 2022 run have had the same exact schedule, results. And although it's not his fault, sometimes when your team is struggling, you do need a new voice. And it might not be on him that the team hasn't been able to acquire better players, but he is head coach. It's your job to work with the team with what you've got. And I think, unfortunately, the emergence of a Ty Baribo, which we're so happy to see, actually makes him look a little bit worse.
I'll say this. I think if it was a different club, I think Jim gets let go. But I think it's because it's the Union. And like we talked about with Todd, continuity is everything with this club. So I think that's going to be the reason why he does keep his job. But I agree. Like, I don't think he deserves to lose his job. I could see a world where he does. But I mean, like, the plan for this year with the congested scheduling, constantly giving him the same squad without any real like difference, playing or going up against some of these big clubs like LAFC, or even like, let's even look at Champions League, right? Like going up against like Club America, and Pachuca and some of these other clubs, and you just don't have a clear difference. Like, you have like really good players, but you don't have a real difference maker, and it's just so frustrating to watch Jim like year in, year out, like get the most out of the squad, and we're just not giving enough back to him.
Yeah, and you see the teams that have players that are difference makers. Messi, Inter Miami wins the Supporters Shield. Shout out to Florida. Hopefully, first of all, everybody's safe with the hurricane coming. But also, seriously. Inter Miami wins the Supporters Shield in the MLS, and the Orlando Pride won the NWSL Shield unbeaten across the regular season so far to date, as they have a couple games left, I should say. So Inter Miami and Orlando locking in top spots for their respective leagues. Something's happening with these teams actually bringing in best players. They've got Marta in Orlando and Messi in Inter Miami, and they win a shield.
Florida soccer, different.
Acquiring top players, the best of all time, also different.
Florida is definitely different, and so are we in a good way. But thank you. That's going to do it for this edition of PHLY Union Podcast. A big shout out to Todd Lewis. Thank you for coming on in.
Definitely.
A big shout out to everyone who tuned on in. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button and subscribing, not only for this show, but everything we got going on in PHLY Sports. For Renee Washington, Andrew Frazier, myself, DOOP on, Philly. Talk to you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.